Andre the Beast. Andre the Beast. Change our lives. Andre the Beast. Yeah, 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 yeah. He tapped in at the break of dawn. Told us King keep pushing on. Ice bath drip in the miles fell long. But your words kept us locked in strong.
Hi, welcome to another exciting episode of the Andre the Beast Creighton Show. Another exciting show and another exciting guest. Let me tell you where we're about to go today on today's show. Imagine, if you will, being labeled a rock star. How about 23 years of understanding longevity? And that's a key word to really talk about when we talk about longevity, because this is a new generation, a new time. People are living a little bit longer, and people are really trying to find that what we might call the fountain of youth. It used to be exercise. It used to be walking. I know I'm a professional bodybuilder, trainer. You know, everybody was either following the trends at the time. And now it's something a little bit different. We're getting into a new revolution of supplementation, natural herbs, natural ingredients. But we'll get into that later. We're going to talk about this one lady and how the topic of longevity has made her, let's call it what it is, a sensation on social media. Everybody wants to know what she's doing, how she's doing it, and in the whole 9 yards. So without further ado, let's welcome to the show. And you've got to remember this name, Ageless by Edie. Let's welcome Miss Edie White to the show. How we doing, Edie?
Hey, we're doing great. Thank you for having me on. I really appreciate it.
Before we get started, this is a powerful name for a company and a brand. Ageless by Edie. How did all this come about?
I mean, the name or just me getting on social media?
Just the name right now.
The name, I went through a couple of names of just trying to think about how I felt about my age. And I think I had two. It was She Rewinds Time, and I own that one. And then it was just Ageless by Edie, because that's what I was feeling. And that's kind of where I was going. Not on the exterior. It was just interior. I felt like age was becoming a problem because of how we felt about it and how our bodies were dealing with it. And so when I really kind of got involved, and then in my journey, I just felt ageless. And I didn't like the idea that we keep putting a number on who we are in our lives. I understand it. I get it, but I didn't like it at this point in time in my life. It just seemed like that number came with barriers and labels. And the minute you hit the 40s, that's a label. The 50s, that was a label. And then the 60s, boy, they kick you out the door. And so for me, Ageless by Edie was just my way to say, hey, you can't kick me out the door because I'm still here. I'm ageless. So get over it.
Okay, let's go here. You woke up the beast. So let's go here. I've been a trainer for years, and I understand what you're saying. Age comes with what they might call some ugly sides to it. So let's use you for an example. You're 62 years old. When did the age thing become a major factor for you? Like, which periods of your life did age really become, because you had to get to where you got to based on some things that happened. So tell me the different age periods that things started that you were labeled. What were you going through in each one of these timelines to get to where you're at today? So let's start from the first timeline when talk about age. Because when you're 20, you're wild, you're crazy, you're that rock star. You're the person that wonders what people don't care when you walk in the room.
Right. I think our 20s we're in college, or we're trying to figure out who we are. 30s, you're raising kids if you have them, or you're working on your career. for me, I was doing all those things too. 40s, same thing, raising my kids, working. I didn't notice anything there because I was still pretty much doing the very same thing I do now. I just was hauling kids doing it. I think the big turn for me was 50s. Mainly, I don't know that I felt like people were already starting to put me in a category. I think I did that as well. But I also think my body did that. It said, hey, you just hit a decade. And I began feeling inflammation, to be honest with you. And I was like, hey, what's that? What's this? I feel a pain after the gym. Different things started occurring, and so for me, it was in my 50s. And then I just kind of started identifying those things. But it was really not until my late 50s that I noticed there was a break in all of that where people just, I don't know that at that point I felt that personally, but I noticed my friends felt it, who maybe weren't working out or hustling as hard as I do, but they were worried about it. Things were changing. And so 60s was a big one for me when I really felt like a category, because then people start thinking about retirement. You're getting old, you're out. And so I think that was really a big, big number for me.
Did you always have a strong beast mindset that you didn't let these things bother you?
No, because I'm definitely, a loner by heart. I tend to not listen to what people say about me or what I'm doing, or I know my groove is different. I have a hard hustle. And so people aren't going to like that when they're not doing the same as you. That's just the way it is. So
you're a woman. What were some of the things that you was hearing from women that you was involved with? You know, whether it be in corporate America, whether it be the stay-at-home mom, the teenager, what issues were you listening to that now at 62 years old, you decided to put all that into Ageless, the Ageless company? What were those things that you was hearing?
Well, I think in my life, I'm a developer on the side. And so I've done gyms, I've been in fitness, and women can be hard on women. And because everybody does things differently. And so I was fortunate enough to, grab my kids, build things, and keep them on my hip and keep going. And so I think I got condemned more for not doing the same mode as other women that were doing that. Like maybe they were married and they were staying at home, not working and raising their kids. I was doing basically the same thing, raising my kids. In fact, I homeschooled both of my kids through a period of time while I was still hustling. And so I think when you go that hard, harder than other people, there are always going to be critics trying to put you down, going, oh, I don't know why she has to dress that way. I don't know why she has to put her makeup on every day. What's the big deal? I don't know how she finds time for that. Obviously, she's not cooking for her children. So you go through my cars were too fast, and I wasn't even driving fast cars, but it was just a pick. It was just a little pick. And, and I work in construction. And so I have to watch, how I move in that field too, because that's nothing but men. And so, but I didn't let it bother my hustle or who I was. I just felt like, man, this is life, and people aren't going to like how you're moving through it. So
you keep emphasizing the word hustle.
Yeah.
What is hustle, and what is it? What's this relation to Ageless?
Well, I think hustle is you just keep moving. And so some people are good about sticking through one thing and that they'll focus on that. And my hustle has always been a desire to do more, always, since I was young. If I saw something, I can still be doing the same thing and have been for 30-something years. But if I saw something else and wanted to do it, I went and did it. And so as an example, I wanted to cut hair and be around more women in my 50s. I went and got a license in cosmetology so I could develop a salon. And I did, while still doing everything else I did. And so that's my hustle. And So I've developed a bunch of small businesses because I enjoy doing that. It kept my brain vital and moving. So
35 years as an entrepreneur.
yes.
Also working in the construction industry with alongside men. How did you stack up with getting into a field that, like you said, we have a tendency as humans, male or females, to put limiting factors on ourselves? What made you decide to get into that? And were there a lot of women in that field? And if not, what made it different with then versus now? Because I do know some women that are now in the construction field.
Yeah, different game now.
It's a different game. What was it like for you then, and how did you manage to stay in it for so long and being an entrepreneur for these many years?
Well, I'm not going to hide the fact that I've been married. I was for 14 years. And so at that time, he did a little, he had his job. And so our first little hustle was, I didn't like the territory we were living in. And I said, hey, I think we'll do better. We should try something else. Yeah. And he was open to that. And he said, well, what would we do? And I said, well, we're already doing construction and other things on the side. And I said, let me go down there, find a development, and I'll start a company. And he said, go for it. We'll see what you do. And so I did. I went down, bought property, developed a car wash, developed a construction company, and not by myself. I'm not going to say I'm the marketer. And obviously he was the back. And although I've done some hard stuff.
Explain that in more detail, because I'm trying to sit here and visualize you just going and pick out some land and go,
oh, I'm good. Yeah. I had a knack for it. I really had a knack for seeing property, and still do. I still flip property and love it. I just had, and I'm a small town girl, but again, I just had a knack for it. I have no fear. So I just had a knack for it. Went to the community I was looking at, found a corner lot, had a house on it. It was run down, but it was across the street from a post office that was going up. And I said, wow, let me look at that. So what they said was, I don't know what you're going to do with that house. And I said, well, don't worry about it. Just, do you want to sell the property? And I bought it. And then I sold that house to somebody else that moved it off. And I had me a beautiful commercial lot to build a car wash on. But I had a mentor.
How do you take, that's interesting. You got to educate the people a little bit because they're listening. Okay. How do you take something that's residential property and convert it to commercial?
Because it was C2, which means that it can be used as residential, but it's also in a commercial territory. So that house was sitting there for probably 40 years, but it was in a commercial area that had come back and being rezoned as commercial. So originally it probably did start as residential, and as the town moved out, commercial came up around it. And so that made it C2. And so you can convert that to it. So that's how I did that.
Now, how did you learn all of this stuff, this entrepreneurship, this flipping and all this stuff? Was this hands-on experience, or did you go to school? How did you get all this knowledge?
I have been fortunate enough to have, at that point, I had a friend of mine. Now, I was in my late 30s when I flipped this one. Now, I had done some other small time stuff in my community prior to that, small community, B&Bs, still, tanning beds, man, you name it. If I thought that was up and coming, I figured out how to get in it. I did a pizza joint, crazy stuff, but I loved it. I just loved getting my hands and running numbers. And I just had too much energy, but I loved making money. And if I could figure out how to make it and still keep doing how I made my real money and put a kid on my hip, I did it. And so that's what I did. And I just kind of figured out a formula.
What was your real money? What was your real money? I didn't mean to cut you off. What was your real money?
Construction.
Now, back to my question. How was you able to navigate that for so long, being a female?
I don't know that at that point. I think probably at that time, actually, people thought it was my ex-husband. I think now, when you're in small town, again, just like now, I'm kind of a loner. I try to keep low to the ground, and do whatever I'm doing. But I think a lot of people probably thought he had something, oh, it was him. But I was the one going out saying, hey, we're going to do this, line it up. There were steps to it. And he said, okay, let's do, that's what you want to do. Let's do it. So I ran the numbers, bought the property, figured out how, scouted everything, and then put it, together. So we were good partners at that.
What was your limitations here? Because let's get real. You're entering a situation that, from the way society looks at it, you don't even need to be here. You need to be the pretty face behind the desk, answering the phone. But you definitely have done other things. I said, so what was the limiting factors? Did anybody put barriers? Did there things that you had to overcome to get to where you're at?
I think still to this day that people pick at me, which is why I keep to myself. And I think they pick at me because I am personally, if you engage me, I can be really strong. I'm educated and quick-witted. And so I would say that it's better, I've been in, hustled in some political things as well, because that's my degree. But I like politics. I stay out of it, but I love the dynamics of it. And so I think those dynamics coming from political background, I understood maneuvering. And so when people didn't like something I did, or I could feel that, hey, that's a woman doing that, is she in control of that? Then I just pushed my ex in front of it. I said, if you don't like who I am, you'll probably like who he is. And it didn't bother me. Still doesn't. So
we won't talk about politics. We're going to say that for another episode.
Oh yeah. We don't want to talk about politics ever. I'm out. I mean,
So let's go here. Let's go back to ageless. You mentioned different aspects of the time frame that you said women and young girls get labeled and so forth. But at 62, beautiful 62.
Thank you.
What are some of the factors that young women, mature women, and in between women need to look for when it comes to addressing something like ageless beauty, their health, their mental, their physical, their emotional? What are some of the things that can show red flags that they need to look at?
I think, as I look back, and I do, because you'll roll back, and I'm really great at this too. When I meet people, even men, I will tell them going, hey, you need to start thinking about this, because you're going to turn 30, and guess what's going to happen? Your sperm count's going to start dropping. So you need to start checking that. Your hormones, hey, they're going to start dropping. So you need to check that. But I'll do that for everybody, because 30 is a marker when we start losing, our hormones will start decreasing. And so there are definitely markers, and 30 is a big one. And that's what we really need to pay attention to. Always our diet. The biggest thing environmentally, I found that I'm still fighting off, which really shot at me in my 50s, is just environmental. It's our foods. And we've all heard this. I try to be short and sweet because there's podcast after podcast on this. So, but it's the food we eat. So can we get cleaner foods, whole foods? It's the sugar, how often we're eating. Society has made us feel like we need to eat all the time, and that's ridiculous. So our body needs time to get into to process food, digest it. It's the hardest thing our body does, which is why keto. But, so there's some tricks of the trade, I think, along the way. I think our body is incredible. It has the ability to heal. And wow, had I known what I know now, I would have been ketoing in my 20s and probably look 30 years younger, because our body has a beautiful ability to heal everything. And the only way we can allow it to do that is through fasting. And we have to give it time to fast. So we just eat way too much, and, we never get into it.
Now, you're not a doctor, correct?
Oh, no, absolutely not.
Okay, so I'm going to ask this question based on you. You said something about you wish you hadn't known what you know now. And I get it. Being a professional athlete in the gym, competing. If I only can work with the information that was in front of me, and the older I became, new technology comes out and so forth. And I go, wow, if I would have done that, no telling what would have happened. Now, you talked about something that was almost like a viral, the ketos diet and the fasting. And we hear so many different scenarios because I believe everybody's different. Everybody's going to react different to different things, including environmental factors. What made you so focused on saying if you had did this, you might have looked 30 years younger or 30 this, or the whole timetable would have changed?
Keto focuses on whole foods, not just when I choose to get into a fast, which my fasting, the time I quit eating is usually about 6 or 7 o'clock at night. I don't pick it up again till 11 the next day. So that gives my body a lot of time to digest the food I've eaten that day and to get into autophagy, which is our cells repairing our cells. And so for me, I mean, when I look back about food and how much we eat breakfast, lunch, dinner, we snack, everything when we were growing up revolved around food. And so any food, all foods. And so for me, that's the thing I look at. Had I just changed the way my eating was, really focusing on a time, in there and just allowing my body to rest and me rest too, which is number 2 on my list is sleep, which we didn't do because I never went to bed till 2 o'clock in the morning. And then I was up at 6 and, here we go again. So.
What was your emotional, mental state like in your nutrition before doing that? What was your body? What was your mind going through?
Before keto?
Yeah.
Or during it?
Before the keto, before the fasting.
Well, before keto, I can go back. I've been ketoing, not that long, by the way. So I'm about a year and 13, 14 months into ketoing. But what I know mentally, what I always tell people, if you can just give it 2 weeks, how your brain will open up without sugar and so many carbs. You can have carbs on keto, but what sugar does to our brain is terrible. And so again, when I quit that, it was only within a few weeks, I realized how much my brain opened up. It was almost like that movie where they took the pill and your brain got bigger. And so I often tell my friends, hey, watch out, because I have big brain now. Because it went from this little pea of always feeling anxiety and taking on a lot of things at once, just hitting me. And then I went into keto, and got off sugar and hard carbs and things like that. My brain just got bigger, and it just seemed to be like a computer. Like, oh,
did your brain get bigger, or did you started to understand more information?
I think it got bigger. I'm telling you. So my nose got bigger, but my brain got bigger too. So I think big brain is just a good example of me feeling more intelligent, being able to process information more clearly. And I do feel like it runs a bit like a computer now. I'm processing better. Information seems cleaner to me. I can break things down nicer. And I just thought that was the most wonderful side effect of it.
Now, one thing that you touched on, and I know firsthand, is hormone manipulation and the decreasing of hormone with environmental factors, lifestyle, genetics, a whole bunch of things. Did you notice different things in your hormonal structure as you increased in your age? Yeah.
Oh, absolutely. I tell women, men we all have hormones, but women, once we go through menopause, we obviously have a decrease in everything: progesterone, estrogen, testosterone. And so what that brings on for us is all the good stuff: dry hair, dryness everywhere, lower sex drive. We build less muscle at that point. We start getting just the old drags, and in some people, depression even. So at 45, that's kind of when I went south. And immediately I felt this woman who had ran 90 to nothing was really pushing through a day. And again, did a little deep dive. And I think even now when I talk about hormones to a lot of ladies, they're still thinking that this is just the way they feel is process of aging. And I don't believe it is. I believe that we would have kept our hormones longer if it weren't for environmentals that have affected us. So I think that's not part of aging. I think that's just part of environmentals: what we eat, what's in our food, air we breathe, water, all of those things affect our hormones. No doubt about it. So
which one was
once I fixed that, I was like, whew.
Which one was a major factor with you as far as hormone balance, and which is probably the top three when it comes to women overall after menopause and even before menopause?
Well, I think, before menopause, I really felt pretty good in my 40s. I think once I went through an early menopause. I don't mind talking about anything, by the way, so please ask me. At 45, I had, which you can go through early menopause if you had like a really bad moment. I did. And that threw me through menopause. And so, okay, that was fine. And then I waited, about a year or two before I figured out, hey, something's not right. Went and got my hormones tested, blood work, all of those things. And guess what? I was zapped out of everything. I wasn't running on testosterone. I wasn't running on progesterone. I didn't have any estrogen left. So I was pumped out. Well was dry. And so, man, I immediately went to pellets, and they were really kind of fairly new to most people on the market. I'm lucky that I'm pretty experimental. I'll do research and then I'll go, well, let's try it. And I did. And so that worked really great for me. So, and that changed everything.
Yeah, I had some clients that did it, and I can always tell a shift when I would train them when their pellet had dissolved, because it would be here to there, and I'd be like, "Oh, you got to go get your
you do.
your thing."
Yeah,
but I don't know how I really feel about that, and I'm not going to sit here and advocate on here or there. I'm a firm believer that proper diet, exercise, and a good environmental things, you can replenish those hormones to some degree.
I don't believe it. I don't believe
you
it.
say you don't believe that. So tell me why.
I know. Well, because they're gone. And so you're already on the spectrum of age. So if the spectrum is here at 40s, 50s, we're already, well, 30s, here we are. We're already decreasing those. I don't see any reports in anybody with great diets in America where they said, hey, I've eaten so well that here's my hormones now. Show me that study. Okay. There's not one. So I don't believe that. I think if we started where we were 60 years ago, before we started putting everything into our food and into our air and our water, again, we might be longer at having hormones, but we will never be pumped up where we started. And that's the trick, is when you're moving through life, you're full of hormones at 20 and 30, you've still got a good supply of them. And then we start decreasing in our hormones. And guess what? Here goes the aging process with it. So when people go, oh, you could eat your way through that. Somebody told me the other day, and I go, how much you eating to get through that? Good luck. Not going to do it. Stick a pellet in my butt and fill me up. So there we go.
So now that you're 62 years old and you started Ageless by Edie, what's the reason for really doing this? What's the real reason? Because are you shifting people away from proper dieting and say, okay, we'll switch over? Because like you said, I don't know if there's any study that shows let me put it like this. I think sometime when the big agenda is pharmaceutical sales or supplemental sales or something like that, things are going to have a lot of research behind it. And they probably is not a lot of research on healthy eating and healthy lifestyle. Either way, all of it is good. It's a means to get to where you got to get to. So I'm not condemning none of it. But what I'm saying here is, what's the main objective for you in Ageless?
Well, I think what I hear from you just then was a confusion in a statement for me, because hormones for me are important in productivity. Now, again, do I preach? Do I sell them? No. I'm just saying, statistically, you can't tell me any differently, because they do run statistics on that. You're going to lose your hormones starting at 30. So get ready. Your testosterone is already lower than it was when you were in your 20s and 30s. You can't deny it. Go get it tested. Prove me wrong. So that's just reality. Hormones didn't put me on socials. What put me on socials was about when I was 58 years old. I sat down and said, hey, what's going on in this body? I had already had hormones for 15 years, 10 years. So that wasn't it. It was just that there were still aches and pains. There was a thought process going on in my head going, hey, I'm about to hit 60. What does that mean? And in society, that means I'm getting close to retirement. And also that means I'm dead in the water. That's what that means. They're going to put me out on a boat and I'm going to go down into the river. So to me, that's what that meant. And I just wasn't ready for that. I didn't feel that. I felt like, hey, I don't feel as good as I did my 30s and 40s. And I challenged it. I put everything down and said, what is bothering me? And that's what I call landscaping. I know you and I have kind of talked about that, but for me, my landscaping was really just sitting down, putting everything here and said, here's what I felt in my 30s and 40s. What am I feeling now? Can I fix it? And I did a deep dive. And then I went from hormones to diet to some peptides, and, changed the way I was exercising and skincare, exosomes, more peptides, really did a deep dive. And then all of a sudden, wow, woke up and said, that's the girl I know.
So basically right, you did your own biological study. You did,
yes.
You did the proper diet, exercise, lifestyle change, did an evaluation, and it didn't get you where you needed to get. Then you went to the hormones. So my question here before we wrap up, you go to an OBGY and you go to your primary care doctor. What were they saying before you start going to an endocrinologist?
Well, first of all, I think when women go to, I have a kind of a little philosophy about that too. Doctors diagnose based upon what you are asking them. They're not going to go, hey, I think you should do this, because they only will diagnose what you bring to the table. So if you have an ache in your belly, they fix the ache in the belly. Women don't go in there, and I don't know what men do, but I can tell you what women do. We go in there and we might say, hey, I don't feel as good down there as I used to. And they'll go, oh, well, that's menopause. That's what that is. We don't say, hey, how do I feel better all over? And they don't come up with any of that either. So knowing the right questions that you feel before you go to primary care is the most important thing, I think, is not going in there waiting for a doctor to tell you what's wrong with you. You have to go in there with the list and say, this is how I'm feeling. How do I conquer that? So, and I think there are great homeopathic doctors who I really love that, will share that philosophy, and they really think about, body first and, the step stool of how we got where we are. But I just don't think we do a good job of going in there and telling, and maybe our primary care isn't the right place. I definitely think blood work is a great place to start, but it often won't show anything other than where you're supposed to be at your age. At your age. So just remember that, where you are supposed to be. Right. Well, those are the levels you should have at 62. Well, they're awful low, but that's what you should have. You're not supposed to feel any better than that.
Now,
think about that.
We know you get met with good, bad, and the ugly. You're very strong at what you believe in. What are What has been some of the negative feedbacks that you're getting from women? Because everybody's not going to believe with your philosophy.
Well, I don't really care. I mean, for me, Ageless by Edie is not somebody else's journey. It's my journey. And I often say this a lot. How you age is up to you. You do you. I don't care whether you eat great or you don't. But don't condemn me because I feel better than you because I do those things. They work for me. I don't know what you've done or what you're doing. But people will often, if you get a comment or something, then my deal back to them is I try to remind people this is my longevity, not yours. You do you. If you feel great and you're doing nothing, do you. Why are you worried about me? So there you go. If you want to watch me hustle because I'm not done, please do. And if you don't, then you go find that grandma on the bench or granddad. I don't care. That's not me. So like it, love it. Come along for the ride.
You know what? At 62 years old, you definitely have that beast mindset, and definitely, I like the attitude. Like you said, this is your longevity. It's not for everybody. I think everybody needs to find out what works best for them. All you doing is sharing what works for you, and you guys can jump on the bandwagon if you want to. Let me ask you a question. How can viewers reach out to you and know more about Ageless by Edie?
Well, when I started socials, I really didn't start with selling anything. I have a website you could go to if you want to buy a peptide. Do you again? It leads you through it. If you want some more information on a peptide, you can ask me about it. I've done them all, love them, know something about them, and you can email me at sherewindstime@yahoo.com. And I love to answer those questions. You can DM me on my socials about a peptide. I'll tell you I've done it and what I think about it and those things. But the wonderful news about my website is that is a website that goes through medical supervision. That's not me telling you what to do. You have to go through a doctor. You pop in, pick it, and they talk to you about it. So this is not something underground going on. You will get a doctor. So, but you can always DM me on my socials and ask me a question, and I love it. So,
Edie, thank you so much. It sounds like a winner. Ladies and gentlemen, make sure you subscribe, click that button. All it takes is one click to make a difference in your life. What was that, Edie?
I said just one little click, one little follow, and you'll have a ride, I tell you.
That's all you need, guys, is one click to make a difference in your life or change somebody else's. Edie, like I said, once again, thank you for coming on the show. Ladies and gentlemen, like always, this has been another, and I do mean another, exciting episode of the Andre the Beast Creighton.
Thanks, guys. I appreciate it.
Andre the Beast. Andre the Beast. Change our lives. Andre the Beast.